In an interview last month, Jurgen Klopp said that because he managed Borussia Dortmund, he could never manage Schalke, and because he managed Liverpool, he could never manage Everton. One notices he picked Schalke and Everton rather than Bayern and Man United, keeping your options open to a couple of the big boys there, Jurgen, but nevertheless, not all managers are so principled. Today's video is all about bosses who took the controversial leap to join a team's bitter rivals. Now, many more than 7 managers have carried out this ultimate act of betrayal, but this is HITC 7s, so I can only pick 7. There will be some honourable mentions at the end, but that's just a heads up that not every manager, including the one that you might be thinking of, will be able to feature. These are just 7 examples I've chosen indiscriminately to include. Here are 7 managers who manage rival clubs. Leonardo Araujo. The Derby della Madonnina, better known as the Milan Derby here in Britain, is among the fiercest rivalries not just in the Italian, but in the world game. Not only are AC Milan and Inter Milan both obviously based in the city of Milan, creating a local rivalry, there are also 2 of the 3 most successful clubs in Italian football, adding a competitive element too. Leonardo Araujo laughed in the face of controversy when in December 2010, having managed AC Milan for a season and played for the club for much longer, he replaced Rafa Benitez as manager of Inter Milan. Neither of Araujo's managerial stints in Milan lasted long, and the former Brazilian international is now the sporting director at PSG. George Graham. An excellent manager who won plenty of trophies and laid the groundwork for Arsene Wenger's Premier League revolution at Arsenal, George Graham's contribution to the English game often goes unnoticed. Graham managed Arsenal from 1986 to 1995, with his time at the club ending under a cloud as he was handed a 12-month ban by the FA for accepting an illegal £450,000 payment from a Norwegian agent. Following a year out of the game, Graham returned with Leeds United, where he spent 2 seasons before joining Arsenal's bitter rivals Tottenham. Graham guided Spurs to their first trophy in 8 years, but he was sacked after less than 3 seasons and accused of leaking private information. That was in 2001, and the 75-year-old hasn't managed since. Jorge Jesus. Talking of underrated managers, there are a few finer examples of contemporary coaches who fit that description than Jorge Jesus. A managerial nomad, Jesus has managed 14 different clubs in 3 different continents, so perhaps it was inevitable that he managed rival clubs at some stage. Controversially though, Jesus left Benfica in 2015 as the club's most successful manager in terms of trophies of all time on June 30th, and by July 1st, he had signed a 3-year contract with Benfica's most bitter rivals, Sporting Club de Portugal. Jesus spent 3 seasons with Sporting, although he wasn't as successful as he had been at Benfica, and the 65-year-old is currently performing miracles in Brazil with Flamengo. Alfredo Di Stefano. One of the finest and probably the most complete footballer to have ever lived, Alfredo Di Stefano also had a pretty extensive managerial career which began in 1967 and ended in 1991. Di Stefano managed Valencia thrice, Real Madrid twice, and Rayo Vallecano once, but it was outside of Spain that Di Stefano managed 2 of the most bitter rivals in world football, River Plate and Boca Juniors. A River Plate star in his early years as a player, Di Stefano managed the club from 1981 to 1982, but it was with River's rivals Boca that Di Stefano enjoyed more managerial success. Di Stefano twice took charge at La Bombonera, once in 1969, and once again 16 years later in 1985. His first stint was his most successful, as Di Stefano guided the club to a Primera Division and Copa Argentina double in 1969. Brian Clough. The East Midlands derby may not be as celebrated internationally as the Milan derby or the Super Classico between Boca and River, but for fans of Derby County and Nottingham Forest, it is enormous. Brian Clough has to feature in this 7, not just because he managed the 2 rivals, but because of what he achieved with both. Both were struggling second division sides when Clough arrived with his assistant Peter Taylor, yet they guided Derby to the first division title and Forest to a first division title and consecutive European Cups. Just 2 years and 2 forgettable spells with Brighton and Leeds separated Clough's time in the East Midlands with Derby and then Forest, and every game between the 2 clubs since 2007 has seen the winners awarded the Brian Clough Trophy. Zdeněk Zeman. There are many fiercely contested derbies within Italian football, but the Derby della Capitale between Roma and Lazio is widely regarded as the fiercest of all the nation's intra-city derbies. Zdeněk Zeman isn't actually the only manager to have managed both Roma and Lazio, but I believe he is the only one to go directly from one Rome club to the other. Zeman did so in 1997 when he brought the curtain down on 3 impressive seasons with Lazio by joining their bitter rivals Roma, where he would spend just 2 seasons. The notoriously attack-minded coach handed Alessandro Nesta his debut at Lazio and Francesco Totti his debut at Roma, and he returned to Rome in 2012 when he spent a season back at the Stadio Olimpico with Roma. Radomir Antic. A natural inclusion in top spot in my opinion, Radomir Antic was not content with managing one of Real Madrid's biggest rivals, but instead decided to go the whole hog and manage both of them. Antic replaced Alfredo Di Stefano as Real Madrid boss in 1991, stopping the rot in his first season in charge, but getting the axe during his second season, despite Real being 7 points clear at the top of the La Liga table. Perhaps that's why Antic didn't feel too bad about joining Atletico Madrid 3 years later, and he would end up having 3 separate stints with Atletico, where he won both the La Liga title and the Copa del Rey. In 2003, he was handed another salvage job, this time at 15th place Barcelona. Antic only spent 6 months in Catalonia, but during that time, he promoted Victor Valdés and Andres Iniesta to the Barcelona first team, finishing in a more respectable 6th place before handing the reins over to Frank Rijkaard. That's it for today's 7, but honourable mentions go to the likes of Harry Redknapp, Sven-Göran Eriksson, Sam Allardyce, Steve Bruce, Alex McLeish, and many, many more. Thanks for watching, give us a like if you enjoyed the video, and obviously make sure you're subscribed to HITC7s. Also, if you're watching on mobile, just try tapping your screen now. Apparently that is sometimes required to bring up our little subscribe button and a couple of other videos that YouTube thinks you might enjoy.